Coming up on today's show, we have a very special episode with the God of War Ragnarok SPOILERCAST with Lucy James. What's good, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the What's Good Games podcast. Normally, your source for video game news, commentary, analysis, and funny stuff every Friday, but this week we're doing something a little different because it is the week of the Game Awards, and y'all know we can never actually cover the Game Awards the week that they happen, so we'll get to that next week. But I'm still Andrea Renee, of course, joined as always by Miss Brittany Brombacher. Hello. Hello. And Miss Riana Manuel Pena.
Hello. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. I'm even wearing my What's Good OG holiday shirt. And of course, we are joined by senior video producer and host, Lucy James.
Hi. Oh, thank you so much for having me.
It's so good to get you on the show. Now, not only do you work at Giant Bomb, of course, but I was going down a rabbit hole listening to episodes of your podcast, which I'm sure people like me didn't know that you were doing. I felt so in the dark, and then I was like, oh my gosh, Lucy has a podcast.
That's the thing. Which one? I'm on so many. So we got GameSpot After Dark. I'm on the Bombcast and Voicemail Dump Truck. And
yeah, but those are part of your
Jeff's
day
Bizarre
job.
Adventure.
I'm talking about your moonlighting.
Yeah, the Moonlighting podcast. So it's called Friends Per Second. It's me, Skill Up, Completionist, and Jake Baldino. So they are all like titans of YouTube, and I'm just like the coming at from the games media side. But it's been great. We've been going for like 11 episodes now. We've had some amazing guests. We've had Jeff Keighley. We had Josh Sawyer. We just had Eric. We're about to hopefully get some cool guests coming in as well. But like it's going well. And so
what is the podcast about?
So it's just it is a gaming podcast. We are all, we've all been in the industry like 10 plus years each, so we kind of all bring that side of it, as well as just we kind of wanted the feeling of just you're hanging out with your friends and just talking about games. So obviously we go off on random tangents where we're talking about things like McDonald's and cultural differences, because obviously I'm British and Ralph is Australian, and then we've got two Americans, so it's actually kind of nice to have a level playing field when it comes to, does the letter U belong in the word humor? Half of us say that it does, and then we kind of go through news, reviews, and we make a big point to get like interviews in, and so it's just it's going really well. We're really happy with it. The reception has also been lovely, and so it's kind of nice because I get to obviously talk about games as part of my day job, and then just to talk about them with a new group of people is really fun and kind of refreshing, and it's something that we've been planning since honestly about this time last year, and we didn't actually launch the podcast until Summer Game Fest back in June, because we miraculously were all able to go and do it in person, and so we're doing that again at the Game Awards because everyone's going to be out, and so we will be filming another in-person episode, which is really fun.
Nice. Very cool. So we'll see you at the Game Awards.
Yes, I'm there Tuesday till Sunday, so I better see you all.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Now, it's going to be a little jarring for people listening to the episode because this episode is actually publishing the day after the Game Awards, but we will hopefully be posting photos and stuff on the social medias, as it were, if Twitter is still around by then.
Hey, I'll see you all on Hive.
Hell yeah.
I am officially on Hive now. I don't know how I feel about it, but I'm there. So
you know what I like about Hive? I love that it feels like old school social media before I feel like it got really fucked up and toxic and overcrowded. Right now, everyone that I'm talking to and that's on it, I'm like, I know you and I know you. It's just, it feels like a chill way to connect. I don't know how long it's going to last, but for now, I'm digging it. It's a good time.
It's only 2 people as well, which is
That's right.
wild.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed it hasn't broken yet, but touch wood, it won't. It's very chill.
It's hard. Building an app is hard.
It's true. Brittany would know. Brittany, how's your app going?
Oh, man. Next question. No, it's all good. No, I mean, obviously, like, we did launch an app a while back, but the problem is that neither my husband or I are developers, and so we had to outsource it to a lovely company across the pond, and they were great to work with, but the management and the upkeep, when it's just, 2 people trying to run it, and then you're dealing with people across, we learned a lot. It's not necessarily dead in the water yet, but it's like, okay, like we have a kid in an actual business that makes money. Maybe we should focus on those things first. Oh, life, man.
Such it is. But Lucy, I wanted to ask you if you're up for chatting about it, about how everything has been going at Giant Bomb. You know, it's been a little bit of a tumultuous couple of months for you guys, having this crazy transition and kind of Giant Bomb as an outlet kind of going through like a rebirth, so to speak, in the last few months. Like, how are you feeling about everything? How's the community doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think rebirth is kind of a good term for it. It's like the core tenets of it are still the same. It's a group of people getting together to talk about video games and sometimes wrestling and now anime too. We've managed to sneak that in. Honestly, like I split my time between GameSpot and Giant Bomb, and so it's kind of like picking between your kids because I love both parts of my job in a weird way. But like it's going well. Like I kind of, as an outsider, obviously working alongside Giant Bomb, but never really doing much with them before I joined. It's been so nice, and like the community's been really welcoming. They kind of let us, you know, do what we do best, and obviously you got people like Dan Reichert and Grub and Jess and Jan and Rory and everyone involved. It kind of go wild and talk about video games and get up to some really stupid shit. And you know, obviously with Gerstmann leaving and doing his own thing, and like we're super happy to see him doing so well, but like Giant Bomb still exists and is still doing well. Like we're still having fun, the community's still having fun. We had that bombathon in New York back in September. It feels like years ago, but it was only like 2 months ago, where we did this huge like 15-hour live stream. And it was, you know, we were talking before we started recording, and it's like being able to do things in person really makes a difference. And so I think that was a really important turning point for us, where it was, you know, some new faces, new shows, but still the same spirit. And so being able to bring everyone to New York, and also like, you know, Vinny came and Alex and Austin came along, and we were phoning people and having them come in. It's like, it just felt like kind of that family coming home moment a little bit. And so I think that was super important, and that's kind of set the tone for more of the things that we want to do the week after this launches, because again, like thinking into the future, we'll be doing Game of the Year, and we have some plans for that, so be prepared for the usual kind of nonsense. But it's change is always difficult, totally, like, you know, and I've been at the heart of a lot of change this year. Obviously GameSpot is now part of fandom, and so is Giant Bomb, but at the end of the day, it's like it's all leading somewhere good, and like we're all very happy there. And you know, it's kind of like a new lease on life for everyone. Like even Tam and I, you know, we've both been in GameSpot for a long time, and getting to do this kind of stuff and calling it work is kind of fantastic. And yeah, the community's been incredible, and like I've never been memed quite so much before in my life. And it's like I'm just, you know, like I'll hop into the Giant Bomb Discord, and I will be an emote or something of me dressed as Mario, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. Or like playing Jenga is now a big thing that we do. So it's been honestly, it's really fun. We're always like watching and listening, and so we're always paying attention to what people say, but we think it's going good.
That's great. And it's always so hard to know how the community is going to react when such a huge change like that happens. And also having gone through an ownership change when you're at an outlet is incredibly scary, if nothing else. Like, what's going to happen to my team? What's going to happen to my funding? Is everything going to change? Are we going to get laid off? Are they going to cancel everything? And, you know, it's been, I think everyone's kind of like held their breath a little bit, being like, ooh, what's fandom going to do? Are they going to close everything? And thankfully they haven't. So we are rooting for you, and glad that everything's going good.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice. And like, I'm technically still a Red Ventures employee because visas just don't work that way.
Right.
But like, honestly, you know, fandom made us very welcome, at the very beginning. Like, they made a whole like hype video for us, instead of like, you know, us making one to tell them who we were. And like immediately, like, people were reaching out and saying, you know, hey, we really love GameSpot, we really love Giant Bomb, excited to work together. And that's, you know, been very much the vibe. It's been really like, you know, been through a few of these corporate transition type things, and like honestly, this has kind of been the best one. And we think they're a great home for us because they really understand what we do, and like we're kind of a perfect complement to what they already do. And so we've had friends who've worked there over the years. I have friends who still work there, and so yeah, it's going well.
Awesome. Well, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Well, shall we spoil all of the things happening in Ragnarok? I don't even know, like in the 9 realms, I guess.
Ooh, I like that. And it's
How do
that
we talk
weird
about it?
thing of I feel like we need to put a spoiler warning at the spoiler cast for a reason. Obviously, it's a spoiler cast. If you clicked on this, you know what you're getting into. But if you have not experienced the end game of Ragnarok, you're missing on some pretty monumental shit. So we're gonna be talking about it. So if you're thinking like, oh, it's endgame, maybe that's all that's good for is wrapping up some side quest. No. Lots of important shit in there. So FYI.
If you didn't get the trophy that was basically, this is the real end of the game and here are the credits, then you haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
Because the credits do fully roll after
Yes.
the initial credits roll. Because there's like the small credits roll.
Yeah, you're like walking through and it's on screen as you're walking, and then there's a later thing where the full, black screen credits, full studio thing.
Yeah.
So that's the big spoiler one.
So is this our official spoiler warning? Do not pass go. Turn it off if you haven't seen the black screen. This is the moment.
This is the moment.
All right.
All right, you've been warned. To get this spoiler cast going, I want to make it clear that we don't really have a set direction in which we're going to talk about the game. I think what's going to happen is we're going to think of things and want to talk about them in the moment. But I want to be clear to everybody listening and watching that Riana has not finished the game yet.
And I asked her, I was like, girl, are you sure you want to be on the spoiler cast? And she's like, yeah.
Yes.
So,
And here's the reason why. This is what I told Brittany. I want something to look forward to. So for me, I'm the one in the audience that has trouble finishing games, right? Like there's just so much to play. I'm a multiplayer person at heart, so it's really tough for me to stick with a single player experience if I don't have something to entice me to keep going. So I actually like being spoiled sometimes because it makes me excited to go see what it looked like for myself. So I am very, very excited for the spoiler class, and I'll be asking lots of questions at the end.
Okay.
great. We wanted to make sure that we asked you yet again, because it's one of those things where it's like, well, if you change your mind, you change your mind. But I'm with you. I also don't typically mind being spoiled on things. It doesn't like ruin it for me. But certain things I make exceptions for. But all right. So Lucy, as our guest of honor, we'll go to you first on a moment from the game. It can be anything that sticks out to you, is poignant to you, is wow, this was a really defining moment of the game for me.
I think, and it's probably the big one. It's the Odin was tear the whole time.
Yes, right?
Oh my god.
Oh, I
When
mean,
that
talk about
scene
just jumping
started,
right in. I never saw that. I never saw that coming.
I didn't. But when it started, like, I was playing it and I was like, oh, it's getting weird. It's getting like weirdly tense. The mood has shifted and I don't understand why. And it wasn't until like the camera swings around and then it happens. I don't know why I'm censoring myself. Stabs Brok.
Oh,
Like, it was just like, oh, and I was genuinely.
There's a lot to take in.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I was genuinely, kind of mouth agape. Immediately paused and texted to Moore, and he was like, "Yeah, it's amazing they kept that very quiet because apparently, if you go back, and so we were talking to Eric Williams, the director, a couple weeks ago. He said where you first find Tyr in that mine, there are raven feathers.
Yes.
In the corner, and I completely missed that. And then there's other little things kind of dotted through. I did not put it together at all. Like he calls Freya Frigg, and there's other things that he does, and I was just like taken aback. But that moment was such a jolt, like water been splashed over me kind of thing, because it was like, oh my god, shit's getting real. Of course he would have done this. Like, everything you learn about Odin as a kind of conniving character who's involved in everything and wants desperately to have control and knowledge. And then I was like, of course he would have done this. I'm angry at myself for not seeing it, but it was so good.
I've kind of gone back and watched some of because every cutscene's already uploaded, obviously. And watching them now, knowing that was, first of all, okay, I word vomit. Okay, first thing that's fun is if you have subtitles on, when Tyr is speaking, who's actually Odin, there's no accent mark over the Y. But when you free the real Tyr, he has the accent mark over the Y, and that was intentional.
What?
Yeah, isn't that fucking wild? Anyway, yeah, when you go back and you look at certain things, and like you were saying, like he calls Freya Frigg, and it's like, okay, that's interesting. I went back and watched Groa's prophecy when it was revealed to Atreus, Kratos, and Mimir for the first time. And there's that part where everyone realizes that Groa had lied to Odin about the prophecy. And if you go back and look at Tyr's face, and you don't quite pay attention to it because at the time Atreus and Kratos are talking, his face has just dropped, and he is just staring into the mural. He's just absolutely staring while there's this heavy ass conversation happening behind him. I'm like, oh my god, it makes so much sense. You just go back and you just listen to every little thing he says. And what I loved about the moment that it revealed, I mean, I hated the moment when Brok died, but when Odin finally revealed himself, it was just so fascinating because Odin got ahead of himself because Atreus had just come back with the mask, and you can tell Odin was so antsy to get back to Asgard, right? That's what it's called?
Asgard, yeah.
Yeah, Asgard. I said Asgard. I knew I was missing something. Asgard. He got so antsy that he dropped character. Right? He dropped character as being Tyr. He was like, well, you know what? I've had my spear put down long enough. I think it is time I take up my spear and I lead y'all to Asgard. And at that point, I was like, okay, if this is actually happening, I always had it envisioned in my head that there would be this amazing climatic moment of Tyr marching into battle. And I was like, this isn't delivering. This isn't the revelation I want it to be. This isn't Tyr being a badass and stepping in and saving the day. This moment is weird to me. And on cue, there's Brok calling him out, being like, the pieces aren't welded together right, or whatever he said. And he picked up on it, and I was like, Odin, you fucked up, and that's where you fucked up. He was too antsy to get back to Asgard. And that's what happened. Anyway.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah,
so well
Riana, if you feel a little lost, we can explain what happened in this scene. So this is near the very end of the game. It probably would be helpful for us if you could tell us where in the game you are at right now.
Right. So I left off right after Atreus was with Angrboda. Is that how you say her name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they just defeated her grandmother, who was trying to collect animal souls. And they put the soul back into the snake, and then, were fighting her grandmother, and then they escaped. That's the last big moment that I had.
So you have quite a ways to go.
Yeah, I know I'm pretty far off
in this story. So this is going to be very revelatory for you, I think.
It's exciting. It makes me want to play it more, honestly.
So there's quite a bit that happens between where you're at, where we first meet Angrboda, and we'll get to Angrboda in just a little bit. She does show up a couple more times throughout the game, but not nearly as incomprehensive as a way of the section of the game that you were just in. We go from there. We're jumping quite a bit into the future to the end of the game, where you've essentially prepared for inevitably kicking off Ragnarok. There is a really phenomenal boss fight, which we're going to talk about, with Heimdall, who we got to see. So you haven't done the section on Asgard yet?
No.
You haven't done any of the Asgard stuff. So
I don't think so.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out if I want to
just go
explain it all to you. So there is a big section of the game where Loki / Atreus decides to actually go against his father and everybody else's advice and wishes to Asgard per Odin's invitation. So I don't know if you remember in the beginning when Odin and Thor go to their cabin, he essentially is like, Loki, if you want to come to Asgard and be my guest, you're welcome to. And Odin decides to kind of invite Loki into his plan of this mask revealing this infinite well of knowledge. So when Atreus gets to Asgard and then assumes his like Loki personality, he gets to meet a bunch of characters who are really cool and become kind of pivotal at the very end of the game, which we'll talk about. One of them is a girl named Thruth, who is Thor's daughter, and Thor is married to this woman named Sif, who is also going to kind of play into what happens at the end of the game. And Loki kind of is making friends with these people, getting to know them. And Odin has this mask that he wants Loki to go find pieces of the mask throughout these different parts of the realms. And so Loki's thinking, oh, well, this is how I get on Odin's good side and how I figure out like what Odin's play is, goes along. And then you actually get to go on a little adventure with Thor. Now, Thor is never playable at any point in the game. I thought for a second, I was like, dude, if they make Thor playable,
Yeah.
it could have been fun, but I also think it would have pulled focus, and so I'm really glad they edited. This is where our good friend Christine Steimer would be like, editing is important, and this is, I think, a really good moment of editing where they're like, you know what? Nah. You get to go on a lot of adventures where you can direct your companion, like Freya. You get to play with Freya and direct Freya, and she's got a whole skill tree. Same with Atreus, of course, and then both Brok and Sindri have moments where you get to play with them. You don't get to play as them, but when you
as well.
Yes, and when you get to go on a mission with Thor, though, it's like he's doing his own thing. Like you never get to like direct him to do anything because he's the fucking god of thunder and lightning or whatever. So, flash forward to the end of the game because Atreus then goes back to, you know, his dad, Kratos, and kind of tells him what Odin's been up to. And there's this really great tension with Atreus / Loki of, you know, where is he going to go? Because he's clearly had this ongoing, like, beef with his dad. And we know that it's just, like, teenage angsty beef. It's not that he doesn't love him or doesn't care about him or he's ready to like run away. It definitely I feel like they totally fucking nailed this runaway moment. And we can talk about that right now if you guys want to, because it was one of those moments in the game that I think about, and I remember being a kid and running away from my house on my bike and like being like, I'm good, I'm done, I'm so mad, and I never want to be in that house again. And I'm like riding my bike through this park being like, where am I gonna go, what am I gonna do, have no money in my pocket. And of course this is the age before cell phones, so had no cell phones, didn't have like Apple Pay on my fucking phone to buy anything. So I was like, okay, I just have my bike and like my backpack with like my school shit in it, and like that's it. And it just kind of took me back there, this psyche of feeling so flustered and overcome by your emotions and not knowing how to deal with your emotions, and the only thing that kicks in is that flight response in the fight or flight of like, I just gotta get out, I just gotta go. And I think, you know, Sony Santa Monica's writing team really kind of nailed that feeling of like, this is clearly like this teenage boy who has all these emotions and doesn't know what to do with them and is fighting with his dad, and he just runs away. He runs away to Asgard, to his like supposed alternate family. And it was such an interesting section of the game.
Yeah, see, I never was worried about Atreus betraying Kratos at any point. I think the reason, what I interpreted from all of that tension, was that he was obviously very, very flustered because while he was in Jotunheim, he saw the mural for the first time of him cradling a bald man who he assumed was his father, dead, and him serving Odin. And he didn't want to tell his dad about the mural at the time for whatever reason. And he was like, I gotta save my dad. But then when he got back to Sindri's house, everyone was dogpiling him, right? Like everybody, like, what did you do? Oh my God, you fucked up, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, okay, fuck this. Like, I'm out of here. And then he bailed at that point. And I always had a feeling that he was trying to do the right thing. But it was, to what you're saying, Andrea, just such a credit to the writing team. Because when I was playing as Kratos, I never felt scared or intimidated or anything. But as soon as I was playing as Atreus and I was in Asgard and I had to talk with Odin and Heimdall and even Thor, I literally felt the intimidation from just existing in that realm. And that was so well done. And there was a moment after we accidentally freed Gar. I guess we're still following this narrative path for Ree. Apologies. But anyway, like the point I'm just trying to make in this moment is like, damn, I felt weak, I felt scared, and I felt intimidated as all fuck. And I was like, God, how are you guys doing this to me? I don't need to feel these emotions right now. But they were very real and visceral.
Yeah. And I mean, to your point, and like actually continuing the narrative thread, is like Atreus has this moment where he thinks he's doing the right thing. He's also with Thrud at the time. They're in Helheim, is it? It's the icy kind of...
Yeah, Helheim.
And they see this big, huge dog, and Atreus is like, well, the mask piece has to be behind this dog. I'm going to free it. Thrud is also kind of battling with her parents as well, and that's a really interesting dynamic, is that you have the Atreus Kratos like family dynamic, and then you have Odin treats Thor like a piece of shit, like he hates Thor and like puts him down at every aspect, and then you've got Thor and Sif who are desperately trying to protect Thrud, and so Thrud is also trying to prove herself just as Atreus is, and they go out on this little mission together, and Atreus rescues this dog, and it turns out this dog can just rip holes in the space-time continuum and just rip between realms, and he's
got a giant-ass chain on him, and at no point did Thrud not go along with Atreus's plan to free this dog. They're
You'd
just like,
think
let's
someone
let this
would have
dog go.
left.
Clearly it needs our help, and none of them were like, why is this dog locked up in the first place?
No one left it like a sign that just said, please do not free this dog.
And it is a big wolf, to be fair, right? It's a giant wolf.
But so there's this point, and then, you know, he realizes just how badly he's fucked up. Like, even Odin loses his cool with him. He's like, what the hell did you do that for?
Yeah.
And then he comes back, and there's this emotion, like, oh my god, they nailed this. When he comes back to Kratos, and Kratos is just like, doesn't immediately reprimand him for doing all this. It's just like the moment of, I'm so glad you're back. I think, is that the only time he calls him boy? Like, there is
he calls him boy when he leaves, when he's like storming out. He busts open the door of Sindri's house and he goes, boy. And I was like, there it is. Okay, they did it.
And then when he comes back, they just hug, and oh my god, I had like tears in my eyes. It was so well done.
That was one of my favorite, under memorable moments. Yeah, he comes back and there's a rift here, right? And Sindri's house is under attack, and everyone's like, oh my god, you're back, but Kratos doesn't show up until after the fight, and they have this intense staring like moment, and Kratos just asks him, what do I call you? And then Atreus doesn't even see anything, he just runs into his arms, and I was like, oh yeah, Kratos. Whenever that lip quivers on Kratos, that always got me every time.
Yeah, he didn't like outright have any moments of actual like tears or sobbing, because like the God of War doesn't cry, but the way that they showed like subdued emotion, well, maybe at the end there was like a solitary tear. I don't recall seeing actual tears, but I think that obviously Christopher Judge's performance is like chef's kiss, and I fully expect him to win at the Game Awards. We will only know once they actually happen.
I feel bad though, because I thought Danielle
Bassetti, she was divine as Freya.
She was incredible as Freya.
That's
like
scene in the beginning.
She was great in the first game, but in Ragnarok, and like I think Ree, you have played this bit where she has the scream, like she's just so frustrated and so angry. It's when Atreus goes to visit her, and I was like, oh my god, she's so good.
So Ree, you haven't done the section with Kratos and Freya where they like come to terms and then like go out adventuring together, have you?
I've seen a playthrough with that section. Okay. I didn't play it myself, but yes, I've seen that. And she was in her hawk form, and then
her Valkyrie form.
They fight Nidhogg, Valkyrie form. Yeah. They fight a Nidhogg. I saw that part.
That fight is incredible. That's an incredible boss battle. So there's a really phenomenal cutscene, which we'll get to in just a second, because I want to, kind of tie the loop on what we're talking about with Asgard. But yes, Danielle Bassetti, very, very amazing. But I'm so glad you brought that up, Britt, this idea of these two teenagers going through these things and how there was such a tonal shift with Atreus. I do want to call out that I really loved the combat feeling between Kratos and Atreus. I obviously preferred being the God of War because he's more powerful. But I love how they had such a distinct feeling, how fast Kratos or how fast Atreus was at evading versus Kratos's evade. Like that to me was like a really significant difference. The sprint, like the speed at which Atreus could move through the environment was so much faster than what Kratos does. And then of course just the feeling and the weightiness of using the Leviathan axe and the Blades of Chaos versus using Atreus's bow. Really interesting design choices that really made them feel unique, and I'm really glad that they gave us both of those experiences. I could have done with a little less time playing as Atreus though, because that Asgard section was long. It was really long. And when I got to the end of it, I was like, I'm ready to go back. I was like, this feels like it's too long away from Kratos and what's happening over there. Did you guys feel that way, or is it just me?
I did and I didn't, but I only say I didn't because I loved Asgard because of the characters that were there. So I was like, I'm totally ready to go back to the tree. I need to see what's happening. Like, how are things falling apart in Atreus's absence? But also, I really love Thruth. I love her story. I love the fact that you can kind of, as Atreus, you can eavesdrop a couple times. So
yes.
There's one time you do it on Odin, and he just goes, Loki, I know you're there. Go away.
Just keep going back.
Yeah. But then there's one where you can eavesdrop on Thor and Sif and Heimdall. I think I would love to talk about Heimdall because
let's talk about Heimdall. Played by the wonderful Scott Porter, who is a phenomenal human being and of course a wonderful actor as well. When he revealed that he played Heimdall on social media, I was like, I thought I recognized that voice. And what a character. So I think it was a little jarring at first because like a lot of these Norse characters, I think a lot of us out there think of MCU characters, right? Because those are like the visual representations we've had recently. If you haven't played Assassin's Creed Valhalla, of course. Or watch like the Viking show, whatever. There's a lot of other representations. But so Heimdall, though, I just kept thinking of Idris Elba, right? I was like, oh, this is such a different Heimdall because this Heimdall is a bona fide fucking asshole, like straight up. Just
how is he portrayed
dude.
In other mediums?
As being more of like a insightful,
stoic,
intelligent. Yeah, stoic is I think is a great
kind of
word.
like the kindly librarian kind of a vibe where he knows a bunch of shit and he'll help you out, but he doesn't really care about you that much.
Like a
but
quiet
definitely not an
warrior.
antagonist.
But you know that Heimdall's like a badass and can definitely like hold his own in battle, but he isn't the guy in the vanguard, right? He's not rushing to the front lines because his job is too important, and his role is really like it has a lot of weight and impact. And so yeah, stoic I think is a great word, and that's just not how they portrayed this character at all, which I think is really fascinating. He's a huge dick, but I mean, like, if you were a god and you could see literally everything coming before it comes and you could use that power however you wanted, it is, that Peter Parker moment of with great power comes great responsibility. And clearly like Heimdall's like double birds. Like, I don't give a fuck about anybody or anything. I do what I want. The only person that has sway over him, of course, is the Allfather.
Yeah.
And there's a couple scenes between them where it almost feels like this tension between Heimdall and Thor comes to the forefront in a really interesting way because clearly Thor's relationship with his father is broken and Thor as a character is broken. And I think it's really an interesting way that they portrayed him as being this father who is there but not there, who's clearly struggling with alcohol addiction and has tried to tell his family that he's done drinking and he's cleaned up his life, and he clearly hasn't cleaned up his life, and he's in a regression period, and he's feeling these moments of inferiority for some reason. And Heimdall is really a good character to push his buttons, but Heimdall also knows that he doesn't want to get into a fight with Thor, because who does?
Yeah, you can tell that Thor, there's this thing of like Thor is Odin's son, and what's Heimdall's relationship to Odin?
She serves him, I think.
She serves him, right? And so you can tell that there's obviously lots of tension there, but especially tension from Thor, who is like, this is my dad. I just want my daddy's approval. But then you have Heimdall, who has the fucking horn, and so you can tell Odin's such a fucking dick. He's such a manipulative asshole. But going back to, unless you wanted to talk more about Heimdall, Lucy, I want to talk about.
Oh
Thor's
no, I just want to mention much of it.
I mean, I do want to mention that boss battle with Heimdall was absolutely wild, and that was the moment in the game that I dropped the difficulty down.
Oh yeah,
I struggled with that one. I have really bad repetitive strain injury, and so like I could not physically keep doing that, so I also turned it down just for that boss battle, and then I was like, okay, I'll come back up once I've smash this guy's face in.
But also, no shame in baby-ass baby mode. No. I also did have the weird bug where I couldn't change my difficulty setting, and I had to go to Reddit to figure out how to fix it.
Oh. I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah, and I'm glad that it wasn't just me, in the sense that, like, I was like, do I just have some weird game-breaking bug where I can't change the difficulty? Because I kept dropping the difficulty down, and then I would go back to my fight, and then I was like, nothing feels like it's changed, and then I would go to make a save, and it would still be like, give me balance. And I was like, so it's not going down to give me grace. I was like, this is really frustrating. I was like, is this a weird bug where it's just not working? And so then, of course, I go to Reddit, and I was like, apparently it is a weird bug. And there are some like weird workarounds where you can do some inputs with the touchpad and things like that. And it did eventually like fix itself. But what a frustrating thing where you're just trying to get through a fight and you're trying to drop the difficulty and the difficulty doesn't change, especially if you were at one of the higher difficulty settings.
God, yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I can't do this. It could be potentially game breaking. But that fight, going into that fight, you actually have to go on a specific quest as Kratos with Freya, because the dwarves are like, we can help you build a weapon that will kill Heimdall, because the whole idea is that Heimdall is the one who kicks off Ragnarok, and killing Heimdall and taking his horn, the Gjallarhorn, which is also weird that they keep talking about Gjallarhorn, because all I think is destiny.
I know. It's a very, very different relationship with that word.
Is that, this is what they're trying to avoid. They're trying to not do this. They're trying to not fall into this prophecy. But Kratos keeps saying, I will do what I need to do to protect my son. And if Heimdall is going to kill Atreus, that I am going to kill Heimdall first. But in order to kill Heimdall, who literally sees every move before it happens, you have to have a special kind of weapon to do that. And the dwarves are like, we can help you with that. And there's a really cool mission where you go with Freya to kind of get these two devices that will eventually create a third weapon in the game, which is, I'm going to admit it, I didn't like it at first. I was like, I'm very comfortable with my blades and my axe.
Same.
I don't like the spear. But dude, once you level that puppy up and you get the specialty things unlocked with the runic abilities, it is real fun, that spear.
Oh, so it's a beast.
It's a badass spear that you get. And it was funny because when we talked about our first impressions in the preview, I was like, I don't think they're going to introduce another weapon. And then they introduced a third weapon.
And I'm so happy that wasn't spoiled for us. I don't know, Lucy, I'm assuming it wasn't for you, but obviously it was for you. But no, that was a really, really, cool moment. And it's also one of the most heartbreaking moments, I think, happens during all of that shenanigans. So you find out that Brok had actually died a long time ago. And Sindri had went to, oh God, what's it called? He went
Lake of Souls.
Lake of Souls? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Lake of Souls to get all his little, as Brok calls it, soul bits back. But he was only able to get, I think it was 3 out of the 4. And so his soul, Brok's
I think it was 4 out of the 6.
4 out of the 6 of whatever it was. It's all incomplete. So he has an incomplete soul, but Brok doesn't know this. But you know this from earlier in the game when Sindri told Atreus. Anyway, fast forward, you're now trying to forge the spear. And there's a mermaid who forges the spear for you. And you're down there, and Brok's trying to talk to her. He's like, ma'am, if you could just bless this weapon for us, that would be great. But she's not even paying attention to him. And then Mimir says, mermaids don't speak to our, I think it's like something bodies. He used another word. I don't know what it was. But they speak to part of our soul, as a part specifically you might be missing. And then at that moment, Brok knows that he did die back in the day, and he does have an incomplete soul. But this weapon needs to be blessed. And so Kratos is like, yo, dude, like, can you bless this for me? And Brok's like, no, I can't do it. And
so to be clear, Brok or Kratos doesn't ask the mermaid blacksmith. She's a really interesting character, the lady. Yeah. He says this weapon needs to be blessed by a master blacksmith.
And that's what I'm getting
at. He asked Brok to do the blessing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So at this point, because the mermaid said, fuck off, like, I'm not blessing your weapon because she couldn't see Brok. So then Kratos is like, but this still needs to be blessed. Brok's all pissed off because he just found out he doesn't have a soul. So Kratos then kneels down and like is wielding this weapon in front of him. And he says it needs a blessing from a great blacksmith. And then he repeats a quote to Brok that Brok had gave him earlier, which is, it is the nature of a thing that matters, not its form. And then you can tell Brok like has this moment and then he blesses the spear. And that just really, I loved Brok as a character. Not only was he just this entity of levity that I think the series doesn't desperately need it, but it was really appreciated in certain moments. And he just made me laugh a lot. That just broke my heart a little bit. I was like, damn, like I think Brok just... A lot of people write him off as just being this like silly, goofy, like unintelligent but talented blacksmith. But he was the one that called out Odin as being Tyr. You know, he was able to bless this spear for Kratos, and you could tell that Sindri just tried to protect him, and I think he was overprotective of Brok. But Brok finally was like, "No, I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna go see the mermaid lady, whatever her name was," and he just really like advocated for himself, and he was just so I don't know. I loved him, and so. To have this scene happen and then to have him like die later was just like utterly, oh my God. Like it was one of probably the most like sad moments in a game for me. And I guess that all depends on if you liked Brok or not. But anyway,
how do you feel about Brok, Riana?
He is definitely in the comic relief category for me for the interactions we've had so far. I would say the very last thing I've seen, because again, I've played some, but then I've also watched a playthrough. So the very last thing I've seen of the dwarves was where I believe they were on their way to Nidavellir. Does that sound right? Yeah. To go find Tyr in the mines.
Svartalfheim. Yeah.
Okay, yes.
The dwarf village in Svartalfheim.
There you go. And everybody's running away and hiding when they come. They sound the alarm and everything. And then they go into the mines and they do a little boat ride. It felt like a Disney ride. So the last bit I saw from them was you know, when they had that little back and forth at their house, which they, you know, gave them a little guest room or whatever. And it was really charming. Like he's like, oh, you know, before you fuckers go, let me give you some weapon and I'll repair your shield for you. Like it was very cute. And I didn't really have any sort of like deep emotional connection to him, but I could definitely see how that would develop over the course of the game. So I can definitely tell where you're going with that, Brittany.
Yeah, I mean, he called Heimdall a quote prize-winning taint stain with a capital stink.
Yeah,
I think part of what makes Brok such a great character is like the balance that he brings to Sindri. Yes. And I think a lot of this as well is that, you know, after Brok's death, Sindri becomes a different character. He is broken. Like he's not the lighthearted, like trying to make everything
germaphobe,
good
right?
And right, germaphobe, like that we know from the first game and from the beginning of the second. He's lost what he thought he couldn't lose again, you know, and so he vanishes and he's so angry at Atreus, he's so angry at Kratos. Then he comes back to help, but he's not happy about it. He's like, I'm just doing this one thing and then I'm done. And so
and he did
and he does it. And then, you know, there's the real ending of the game beyond everything that happens at Asgard and Ragnarok is Brok's funeral. And, you know, you go to Svartalfheim and you put him on a boat and set him out into the water, and Sindri comes and you didn't necessarily think he would, and it's just like this powerful moment. And then is he the one who sets it ablaze, or is it Freya?
It's Freya.
He has the torch, and
that's the one. And then
he holds the torch and she lights the arrow. Yeah.
And as soon as it's done, he walks away and he just slips off between realms, and
then to add insult to injury, that's when Mimir solves Brok's riddle. So, God. Okay, so earlier on, so they're talking about riddles and shit, and there's some really funny moments where Brok tries to get Kratos to admit that he likes riddles or tries to like fool him with the riddle. But
I'm gonna stop you there because this is a fun recurring moment that I want to talk about. But I want to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors who make What's Good Games possible. We'll be right back. This episode of What's Good Games is brought to you by MeUndies. Who doesn't love getting new undies for the holidays? Nobody, that's who. MeUndies is your go-to spot for snuggly, soft undies and more that all your loved ones will adore. Hey, that rhymed. Do you like that? Get merry in matching sets, perfect for binge watching or holiday your way, however you like, with new limited edition prints. The holiday spirit just got real. Try MeUndies and get 20% off your first purchase plus free standard shipping and free returns when you go to MeUndies.com/WGG. Y'all know that we've been fans of MeUndies for years now, and I talked about how for the last couple of Christmases I've been getting my family matching pajama sets, and they have such cute holiday prints. They're so cozy, whether you like the two-piece or the onesie, or maybe you prefer to rock the sleep dress. Yes, they even have that now. It's amazing. They have something for everybody. And you can spend less time gifting and more time living with the new MeUndies holiday collection. From undies and bralettes to PJ sets, MeUndies has something for every name on your list. Shop classic plaids for dads, holiday sweater prints for fun friends, and of course the softest loungewear ever for all of the cuddly ones in your life. Available in sizes extra small to 4XL, MeUndies has everything you need to make your favorite people smile this holiday season, all in one convenient place. And maybe a little something for yourself too. Come on, I'm not the only one that puts something for myself in my shopping cart when I'm shopping for other people at the holidays, right? Come on, you do it too. And this year, you can holiday your way with MeUndies. To get that 20% off your first order, free shipping, and a 100% satisfaction guarantee, go to MeUndies.com/WGG. That's MeUndies.com/WGG. So they know What's Good Games sent you. This episode of What's Good Games is brought to you by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trip to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. It's why it's America's #1 meal kit. It's the most festive time of year, everybody, and HelloFresh is here to help make the most of every moment. From holiday hosting to dinners during busy weeknights, you can count on HelloFresh to deliver fresh ingredients and seasonal recipes. Now, I talked about the charcuterie board that I got from the HelloFresh market, and now, you guys, they've got a cheese fondue board, and I added it to my box for Christmas weekend because my moms are in town, and I want to make sure we have something to drink with the champagne I've got already in the fridge. And you guys, they also have hot cocoa flavored cinnamon rolls. I mean, what? I didn't even know they made such a thing. It's never been easier to prep for a party or fill your pantry with the HelloFresh Market. And if you're looking for variety, look no further. With over 35 recipes available to choose from each week, there's something to please everyone. Choose from family-friendly, fit and wholesome, or even veggie if you don't eat any meat. Plus, you can also easily customize your meals by swapping out proteins and sides, upgrading your proteins, or even adding protein to veggie meals. And as I've mentioned before, I have loved my HelloFresh boxes. I've been getting them now for well over a year. I think we're going on 2 years now. And I just tried a new recipe, lemon dill chicken, and it came with this amazing turmeric couscous and a tomato salad, and it was divine. Even my baby loved the couscous. It was awesome. So if you want to try out America's #1 meal kit for yourself and test out these tasty things that I've been talking about, go to HelloFresh.com/whatsgood18 and use our code whatsgood18 to get 18 free meals plus free shipping. That's a ton of free food, you guys. That's HelloFresh.com/whatsgood18 and use code whatsgood18 for 18 free meals plus free shipping. And when you use our code and our URL, they know that What's Good Games sent you. This episode of What's Good Games is also brought to you by ExpressVPN. Using the internet without ExpressVPN is like walking your dog in public without securing them on a leash. Most of the time, you're probably going to be fine, but what if one day your dog runs away, or worse, gets dog-napped? That happens frequently. You'd be surprised. But it's better to be careful, isn't it? especially when it's as simple as using something like ExpressVPN. Every time that you connect to an unencrypted network, in cafes, airports, hotels, wherever you are, your online data is not secured. Any hacker on the same network can gain access to and steal your personal data. But ExpressVPN creates a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet, so they can't take it. It, in fact, would take a hacker probably 1 billion years and a supercomputer to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. That's how sophisticated it is. And ExpressVPN works on all of your devices, your phone, your laptop, your tablet, even your smart TV. And it's easy to use. Just fire up the app and click the button to get protected. Between coffee shops, hotel lobbies, and airports while I'm on the go, I feel like I live my life on public Wi-Fi. I feel like you guys know what I'm talking about. We're just always out and about, and you don't want to be using your cell data, and everybody's got Wi-Fi, but because everybody has Wi-Fi, that means anybody has access to it. And that's why it's so great to have the ExpressVPN app on my phone. All I do is make sure that I pull the app up, hit the big button in the middle, and get connected. And then I know that no matter what I'm doing between email or banking or, when I got to Venmo somebody for dinner the night before, it's all secure when I'm away from my home network. And if you want to get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free, you have to go to expressvpn.com/whatsgoodgames. That's expressvpn.com/whatsgoodgames to get an extra 3 months for free. expressvpn.com/whatsgoodgames. Welcome back, everybody. We were just about to talk about this ongoing riddle joke between Brok and Mimir that keeps coming up scene after scene after scene, and it's hilarious because the world's smartest man can't figure it out.
He can't. So the riddle is this, friends. What gets bigger the more you take away from it? Ree's thinking. She's like, I don't know. No. Anyway, so Mimir has a lot of guesses throughout the game, and Brok essentially shuts him down like, oh, that's a stupid answer. That's a stupid answer. And tragically, Brok dies before Mimir is able to figure out what the answer is. And, Mimir is always talking about it, always trying to figure it out. Even when Brok isn't there, he's bouncing ideas off Kratos. It's pretty funny. And then at that point that Lucy was just talking about, where Sindri comes, he helps Freya light the arrow, pushes Brok off into the water. It's very emotional, very sad. He turns around, he disappears into another realm between realms. And then at that point, Mimir just comes out of nowhere and he says, a hole. And Kratos is like, what? And he's like, a hole. He's like, what gets bigger the more you take away from it? And that moment just hits so hard, considering that Sindri is now this broken character. Again, part of the levity that has been in God of War, right? This super funny, oh my God, germs, ew, gross, blah, blah, blah. And now he is just battered. He's bloody. His clothes are torn. His eyes are bloodshot. He's disheveled. He looks like shit.
It's like he came from Ragnarok and then never changed, never did laundry, never did
absolutely.
Anything.
That's a perfect way of describing him. Yeah. And the whole what gets bigger the more you take away from it. And it's like, fuck. God, that's oh God. I was a waterworks. I was never full on sobbing at any point during this game, but let me tell you, the tears were flowing. Many times.
Fenrir at the beginning for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yes.
God.
Right?
Yeah.
I was like, why you gotta kill Fenrir right out the gate? Damn.
I know.
But he comes back. So,
He does.
fun fact, the little blue wispies that come out when
This
Fenrir
is
dies.
in the giant pebbles. That's what I call them. The giant pebbles.
So I think this is a great moment for us to transition to talk about Angrboda and about the Yotenheim and what happens there. So you just finished that section of the game, so it's super fresh for you. What did you think about Angrboda as a character and how she interacts with Atreus?
Yeah. So I will say, first off, the people that I was with when I watched them play through this section were very keen on looking up all of the characters in mythology to see what the core lore says about the characters. So her and Loki had a relationship and had offspring apparently in
They
lore.
were lovers, yeah.
Yeah. So the whole time I was like, are they vibing?
They totally are.
They're 14-year-olds
totally
or
vibing.
whatever. They're I guess he's 15, 16. They're young. But I
16.
mean,
Yeah.
they got the lust in their loins, I guess.
Yeah, they had cute little, age appropriate vibes. So I was first of all distracted because I was trying to see if they were flirting with each other. But also I really appreciated her character and how she this is going to get really deep. How she still had love for someone who was supposed to be there for her but couldn't. And I'm talking about her grandmother, her parental figure. And I'm noticing there's a lot of broken parental figure relationships throughout this story, which I don't know is telling from the story creators or just the way life is. But I found it very fascinating to watch Atreus watch her deal with that trauma. And the ultimate solution is they fight her grandmother, which, it's a video game, of course. You're not going to go fist fight your grandma if she was rude to you when you were growing up in real life most of the time. But I found it fascinating how quiet he was and how he would listen and how he was just supportive and curious about her reaction to everything that was going on. And at no point did he center himself or say oh yeah, whenever I'm fighting with my dad, it's like this. And I've, as somebody who struggles to be there for people who are going through things sometimes the way that I would like to show up for them, I found his journey incredibly helpful personally. And that, again, this is going very deep and not so much commenting on the game context and more on my personal reaction. But I absolutely loved that section for that reason. And one thing that I really, really liked about the storytelling of that section is how much Angrboda, I hope I'm saying her name right, Angrboda, how much she believed in the goodness of people and the goodness of fate, and how even if Atreus was literally looking at a prophecy saying his dad will die, he's going to go to Asgard, everything's going to be the opposite of what he wants, she still encourages him to be hopeful and to be positive. And after everything she's been through, she still carries on the souls of the giants. She still believes that there's a purpose to it. Like her endless belief in the fact that things will work out was just very inspiring. And I really loved her character for that. Because there's not a lot of that in this game.
Yeah.
No.
And I love the way that Atreus encourages her, because she's like, my role in this is done. And he's like, it doesn't have to be. And he's encouraging her as well in that way. And I really loved that. I really loved just Atreus making a friend and having a relationship that wasn't, dealing with his dad's moods, and Freya, I guess, was a friend now trying to kill him. I loved seeing him with someone his age. And actually with Thruth later on, you'll see as well. It's he is encouraging her. Thruth wants nothing more than to be a Valkyrie. And he's like, well, me and my dad have fought all the Valkyries, and you'd be a great one, and, I'll help you train and stuff. But Thor and Sif do not want that for her at all. And so it's great to see in different circumstances how he can be just this good person, and it's really sweet. I love him.
Agreed. Yeah. I think Jotunheim had some of the best narrative moments. I thought the gameplay section, Andrea, you were talking about Asgard. For me, Jotunheim drug on a little too long.
Oh, I'm with you right there.
Yeah.
Jotunheim was
when they're in the back of that thing.
too long. Yeah. There
Yeah,
was a lot
back
of
on that thing.
why are we doing this again? You made your point. I honestly think
roots?
it's we built this gorgeous world. We just need the player to live in it a little while. Otherwise, our team's gonna get very mad at us.
But like you're saying, Reese, some of the best, and like you too, Lucy, some of the best character development with Atreus comes from her, because you don't really ever get to see him interacting with someone his own age until that point, and you're like, oh, you're really just like a kid at the end of it. And I was also really curious to hear how he would talk about his dad. And again, always respectful. Of course, he was honest, but he was never like, I fucking hate that guy. And I was like, okay, cool. I don't think you're gonna backstab him, but at the end of the game, you can go back to Jotunheim and as Kratos, and you can talk to Angrboda. And that was a really fun moment. So you should definitely look this up, and just so you can experience it. She's painting, she's doing all these murals and everything. And I loved this moment. As Kratos, you comment, you're like, oh, are you drawing these? And everyone around him, Freya and Mimir, just saying how pretty and talented, the drawings are and whatnot. And I think she says, your son paints, or maybe Kratos said, my son paints, one or the other. And she said, yeah, we're giants. We all have it within us. He just needs a little bit of discipline to bring it out of him. And Kratos legit chuckles and says, I like you. I was like, yeah, you guys are gonna grow up and make babies, and it's gonna be great. Yeah. So
Well,
I mean, no,
technically
I think,
in the lore they make Fenrir, which is confusing.
And they
right?
make Jormungandr as well.
the
Like,
serpent, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's really interesting how the narrative team addressed both of those things that exist in Norse mythology, because there is that moment where Atreus puts the soul of that giant into that snake, and then they call back to it throughout the game on how this snake has gotten incredibly large, and it's like, is that Jormungandr actually? And then, you know, obviously he shows up in Ragnarok as well, but then goes back in time, and there's like a whole like narrative loop about the snake that I didn't quite grasp all the way. But
Yeah.
I think it was really interesting how they kind of also alluded to the idea of Fenrir being this giant wolf with, you know, the soul of Fenrir going into Garm. It's like, it's clever. It's you're playing with like the actual written mythology, but making your own spin on it. I liked it.
It's also good because, like, you know, I read Norse mythology, like the Neil Gaiman, like, bunch of stories, and, you know, you've seen various interpretations of the characters over the years, but I felt like I recognize that name, but I'm really glad that I don't know who you are in this world. And I think the way they handled those characters is so clever. And, like, it just meant that I was constantly surprised at every turn. And I think that's something that they should be really proud of, because, like, even the ending, like, I had no idea where that was going.
I was so worried. I
knew
ready. I knew that Kratos wouldn't be killed off because he makes too much money. But I was like, who's going to die? What's going to happen here? Like, where are they taking this? And so I was very pleasantly surprised that the ending was actually good. When Atreus was like, oh, we're going to win Ragnarok. It's going to be great. I'm like, oh, we're fucking losing everything. Something bad's going to happen. But hey, he wasn't wrong.
I mean, we lost Brok and we lost Freyr. So you also didn't get a chance, Riana, to meet Freya's brother. There's a really phenomenal section of the game that's set in Vanir that then goes on a really long time. They like open up this giant section of the map.
Vanaheim.
With the Vanir in Vanaheim. And I remember getting there. So you do a narrative bit with Freya's brother Freyr. And then the idea is that's on the mission to get the spear that you're trying to kill, to build to kill Heimdall. And then you're supposed to take the spear and, you know, the Draupnir spear back to the brothers so that they can like finish forging it or whatnot. And then there you can like open up this whole other section of the map, and it's like, oh, or you can go back, you know, to Sindri's. And I was like, but you just dropped this giant section of the map on me. What am I supposed to do? I did think it was interesting how the game would talk to you really almost fourth wall breaking of, are you going to go continue with the main path, or should we go adventuring? And the game really kind of hammered it home at the end in a couple sections where they're very much like, go do some other stuff. Yeah. Go have fun and do these things together, because you're not going to be able to do them together after a certain point. And I like that for multiple reasons. One, I like it when a game telegraphs to me that the world environment's going to permanently change. And if I don't have a save in the right spot, I'm going to be mad about it. So thank you for telegraphing that to me. But also this idea that they kept hammering home, we don't know how much time we have left together, father and son. If I'm going to die in Ragnarok, I being Kratos, like if Kratos is going to die in Ragnarok, let's spend time together. Let's not rush into this battle that's inevitable that I may or may not die at, or that you may or may not die at. Let's instead be together and spend time together, even if it's us just like rowing a boat around collecting random shit from chests or whatnot. I love that message of it's okay to slow down and put like the big things on the back burner from time to time. We all can't just avoid our life responsibilities, of course, but it's okay to just say, hey, I need time to be with the people that I love, and life will wait.
Yeah, there was a really beautiful moment when they were freeing the half-goofas. think is what they're called. The big
yes.
jellyfish in the sky. Beautiful.
In
So pretty.
Alfheim.
Yeah. And, you know, Atreus and Kratos, this is earlier on, depending on when you do it, you know, they're still beefing quite heavily. And Atreus is like, why are we really doing this? You know, you don't have to try to do this as a distraction if you're trying to keep my mind off of everything. And Kratos just is like, it's not a distraction. And then Mimir said, have you ever considered, lad, that he just wants to spend time with you and while he can? And then Kratos kind of piggybacked off of that. Obviously, it wasn't until later in the game, towards the end, where Kratos really opens his heart up and accepts that he was the one who wasn't ready to accept that Atreus is grown up and a capable warrior on his own now. But yeah, Andrea, those moments were really special, and they were just really beautifully and cinematically done. And I remember just like looking up in the sky. It's too bad that the two of them ended up banging and then dying, and then they were just filled with their little like half good jizz in the sky. But like, cool, you do you guys. But it was really pretty.
The Hafgufas are essentially these giant jellyfish, these like that like fly in the sky. Did you see them, Ree?
I've seen pictures of this.
And yeah, there's like this, once you free them both, like there's like this ceremony where they essentially give their life for their children, and there's like a whole narrative like tunnel to go down there as well, talking about this idea of the sacrifice that parents make for their children, and how these creatures' ultimate sacrifice is, in order for their children to live, that they must die, which is horrible. I would like to keep living. Thank you, baby. Hopefully we can have lots of time for that. But I think that to me is why this game is so impactful, is that this isn't just a game. Like, what they did narratively is so important, talking about all these different kinds of relationships between father and son, between two brothers, between, you know, a daughter and her mother, between, like, you know, two potential rivals that were used to be friends and now are enemies, you know, and the coming back and forgiveness. And like, there's so many layers of themes of emotion. And in this, I mean, we haven't even like dived into the whole thing between Freya and Kratos and like where that went and how dark that got. Clearly she's trying to murder his ass in the opening sequences of the game. And then they have this moment where they actually have this communication breakthrough. And like, God bless the idea that we can talk our fucking problems out and not kill each other. Right? Like,
we have to try to kill each other first because combat. Yeah. But then.
Yes. Because, you know, boss fights and whatnot. But this idea that they are able to talk out her feelings. And I just had so much respect for this idea of like, it's okay to like have big emotions and talk about them.
Yeah. As well, like in those sections, you know, when you kind of start going around with Freya, it's really good to see Kratos trying, because he doesn't get it right at least at the very beginning, but he's at least trying, and he tries to meet her halfway. And, you know, from the Kratos we've known for the past almost 20 years of God of War, and especially the one from 2018, it's like, that would not have been that Kratos. And he's something profound, like a lot of profound things have been happening to that man. And when you get that big breakthrough moment, the mission is that, you know, Odin basically cursed Freya. She can't leave the realm. He's hampered her, like essentially smothered a lot of her power. She's not as powerful as she used to be. And so you take her and you go around the place that she and Odin got married. And so she not only gets to like get the catharsis of breaking items that were important to the ceremony, but also like she openly talks about the trauma with Kratos. And like at the end of that mission, you know, he helps her and like break away and just let that stuff go. And then they have this reconciliation, and it's so well done. And like, they both agree, like they've both been through too much, and like the thing that they have to do is work together to face against the real threat, which is Odin and like the end of the world. But it's like from this place of like parentage, like they both recognize their roles in their children's lives and what the mistakes they've maybe made and what they don't want going forward. And it's like this beautiful moment. Like it's why I say when Danielle did not get that Game Awards nom, I was like, she should have got it for that scene alone. But it's fantastic. And also like in the post game, you go around with Freya, like she is your companion, and it's great because I ship them for sure. They're
you do?
They're so sweet to each other at the end, like. But you know, they're just basically trying to fix the world now and leave it in a better place, and so they're working, and that's basically like the story reasoning that you can go back and mop up side quests, and you know, there's new things that you have to kind of clean up and whatever, and obviously fight. But you know, she has a lot of history that Kratos doesn't necessarily know about, but she has a shared history with Mimir, which I love, because like Mimir just keeps like trying to poke her and like bring up some old stuff, and she's like, no, I'm not gonna do all that, leave me alone.
You know, it's so funny you say that, because one of the things I wanted to bring up is to me anyway, I have no inkling of any sexual tension between those two, or any inkling of
none.
romance
I
between the
don't think
two.
there's sexual tension. I think they're so good for each other. So like, even if
okay,
it's
so you ship them.
I ship them.
Okay.
Could be a platonic friendship. I'm just so happy they are together and doing things. Like,
because that's something
like
I really
bosom
appreciate.
buddies.
They're just good buds, and they know that they're good for each other in terms of like friendship and making shit happen. They're a good team. But I just also really appreciate that you know, you're not going to make these two people into a thing. You know, maybe one night they get drunk on their own while doing side quests and they boink. Who could say? Like, that's on them. Like, you do you. But it's nothing that we, the players, know about, and I think that's great, because I'm just trying to imagine those two together in a relationship, and I was like, oh, that would be bad. That would be real bad.
Yeah.
But yeah. It's interesting theme that we've talked about. Like you were said, like parenting. You got Thor and Thruth. You got Freya, who's coming to terms with what happened with Baldur. You got Atreus, and you have Kratos, and it's just like, man, does anyone know how to, the grandmother in Angrboda, does anyone know how to be a parent, like a healthy parent in this world? I guess being a god and a parent is probably a difficult thing. I don't know.
Is Thor the best parent in this story?
Definitely
like,
not. No.
No.
I would
And
maybe give that to Sif. Like, I would say, if we're
think
looking
so.
at best parents in this situation, Sif is probably the one who's like looking out for Thruth, and who actually goes to Thor and is like, you aren't mad enough that we lost our boys, that Magni and Modi, right? Yeah. Like these two characters that we fight in 2018 God of War, that, you know, Atreus and Kratos kill. And she's like, this giant, this Loki, you're just like going on these missions with him. He killed our sons. Like, this is, you never like held your father's like feet to the fire about this. Like, he's putting Thruth at risk now. And I think that she's a character I would have liked to see a little bit more of, and a little bit more backstory for. But obviously
she was
only
too
so much
level-headed.
time.
It wouldn't have been entertaining. She made too much sense in her logic. You know?
She's in Vanaheim in the post game.
Yeah.
She has like a couple nice moments in there. But yeah, I agree. I would have loved to have seen more from Sif. I'm glad we got I didn't expect to see that much of Thruth, and I'm really glad we did. I thought
she was great.
So do we want to talk about like the end game Thruth like Easter egg that they dropped?
Yeah.
So clearly everybody knows that Thor has this hammer, Mjolnir. But what you won't know until you get to the end of the game is that Thor is killed in Ragnarok. And he's killed by Odin. Odin literally stabs Thor through the chest. And
Odin's a coward.
And it's a really hard moment, because it's when Atreus is being confronted by Odin, and you're fighting Odin, and Thor appears, and Odin tries to command Thor to fight, because Kratos and Thor had just had a clash. And Kratos is trying desperately to say, we don't have to fight each other. We have to be better for our children. You and I are both bad dudes. We've done bad things, but we can be better and need to be better for our kids. We need to set a better example for them. We don't want our children to be like us, like the bad dudes that we are. And it feels like he somehow has a breakthrough moment with Thor, and they essentially agree to like lay down their weapons, and then in comes Odin, and he tries to be like, what are you doing? Why are you talking and not fighting? Why is this guy not dead yet? Like, what the fuck, you fuck up? And just starts berating Thor for the fact that Kratos and Atreus are still alive or whatever. And then you think that there's going to be a good moment between Thor when he confronts Odin, but we don't get it because Odin then literally fucking murders his son, like stabs him through the chest and murders him in front of Kratos and Atreus. And it's like a really like kind of shocking moment because I didn't see that moment coming.
Well, doesn't he like throw Thrud aside as well? Like,
so as he's stabbing Thor, Thrud, because Thrud had been, you're right, Thrud had been thrown, and then right as he's stabbing Thor, Thrud sees it, and she lets out like this guttural scream of no, and then they like both like feebly reach for each other, and then that's it. And then Odin immediately tries to put the blame on Atreus and Kratos because he's a fucking
Thrud
coward.
saw Odin stab him. She's like, there's to be no mincing of words. Like she saw it all go down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really powerful moment in the game, but because of that, Mjolnir, Thor's weapon, is essentially like lost in Ragnarok because there's all this fighting happening and like a lot of environmental destruction, and then you kind of get teleported into this boss fight with the Allfather, and there's no mention of what happens with Thrud or Mjolnir in that moment. And then in the end game, you get to see Thrud again, and she's like, there's this thing I have to go find. And it's like so obvious to fucking everybody that it's the fucking hammer. Of course she's gonna go look for her dad's weapon. Like, you don't just let Mjolnir like hang out somewhere. You gotta go get it. And then at the very, very end, there's like an Easter egg moment where you like see Thrud with Mjolnir, and she like takes off in the sky, and it's like really cool.
She's like, I'll make you proud, Dad. And then off she goes.
Very sweet.
And I'm glad, then that's also an interesting dynamic. I'm glad it seems like in the end she was able to forgive him despite his addiction to alcohol and his alcohol abuse and the problems that it brought to their family. And I also just want to give a shout out to the narrative team on that front. Alcohol abuse is a very tricky and awful disease. And they handled that, I feel like, so realistically. Her reactions and seeing the way Thor reacted. He knows he needs help, but he can't help himself. And then in the end, she was able to, in my mind, forgive him. And now she wants to make him proud and become a Valkyrie. And she's going to have the fucking hammer at her disposal. So I thought that was really well done. And it was surprising to see her. And I'm happy we did. I would have loved to have seen more of her. But, I mean, who? And this is, I guess, the next question. Like, where does the series go from here?
So they've said that this is the end of the Norse arc for the series, that they're kind of pinning the Norse mythology, and that the series obviously is going to continue. But they haven't talked about how it's going to continue, where it's going to continue. And I have so many questions about that because they left so many open threads with the Norse stuff. Like Loki / Atreus at the end of the game is like, I'm going to go search for the giants. And so he goes off on this adventure that he has to do solo to look for the giants. And it's like, well, okay, so are we just never seen Atreus again? Like, is it just donezo? And then it's like, okay, well, they give us this moment with Thrud, like getting Mjolnir back. Okay, so she could clearly play a big role. And then there's Angrboda and what she's going to do and if she's going to interact with Atreus again. And everybody else in the world. So I'm like, are we just leaving all of these characters behind? Like, that's kind of sad.
I don't think so. I think they're all going to come back in some way, shape, or form. I think this ultimately will always be Kratos' story. Kratos needs his supporting cast of characters. Like, he's a fascinating guy, but on his own, I don't think he's kind of boring. Like, he's very smart and intelligent, but like he needs the comic relief of Mimir. He needs Atreus to grow him as a character. So I think, and this has been kind of the general consensus I've seen, is that we're going to go to different universes, different gods, and see where he can maybe become a champion there, or is his, because remember his whole goal, I feel like, is he's never thought he would be able to be revered. He never thought he would be worshipped. Did anyone ever love him? Odin taunted him with those words, and at the end he sees his mural and he's depicted as this golden statue worshipped by a bunch of people. Now, are those people all from what do you call the current Norse shit, or is it from like a bunch of other universes? Like, we don't know. And there's some fun theories going on with after you free the real Tyr from the prison, he's doing a bunch of interesting movements in every realm. And in the IGN spoiler cast, apparently Eric Williams, game director, said that after you free the real Tyr, there's a reason he's found doing certain motions in each realm, and that it could be a hint for a secret. And so people see him doing Tai Chi in Helheim, and people are like, okay, where are we going with this? You know, where are we going next? So
there's a secret spot, Riana, in Niflheim, which you probably haven't opened the Raven Tree yet, have you?
I don't think so.
So you at one point
that doesn't sound familiar.
Get to go to the Raven Tree. So all the ravens, Odin's ravens that you kind of can kill throughout the game, each one that you kill in the game will then appear on this tree in Niflheim, and then there's a bunch of chests after X amount of ravens. You can unlock different rewards inside the chests, but at the end game, if there's a path that opens up to the side in Niflheim, where you can go over and you find this prison, this new structure, almost like I don't want to quite call it a dungeon because that's like overblowing it a bit.
Yeah.
It's just like this tiny little area, like a little cave type thing. And you go down multiple levels and you have to figure out how to get down. You fight enemies along the way. And when you get to the bottom, you get to a prison with the real Tyr. So we mentioned that, you know, the Tyr that you saved from Svartalheim isn't actually Tyr. It's Odin in disguise. And what you also discover along the way when you go down this prison is that everybody that's still locked up in that prison is essentially like an avatar for Odin, and he has to keep them alive. Otherwise, he can't assume their form. And so you end up killing all these different people who have been used by Odin along the way. But they try to kill you back. So it's like, you know.
They do go for you.
And then after you free the real Tyr, then when you continue through the end game, he'll start to appear in different realms as you're doing like random side quests and kind of doing end game stuff. And that's what Brittany's talking about. There's these theories about, you know, what's going to happen next.
Ooh, he seems much more self-assured and confident than the Odin Tyr. Odin Tyr. Yeah.
The Odin Tyr. So we had Greek mythology. Now this is Norse is closed. And we're saying we think potentially some
East Asian
mythology.
Fuck, that'd be sick, dude.
I thought like my kind of prediction or like fan theory, I guess, would be instead of gods, it would be more like fables and like more of those kind of things. Like maybe that you would get more with like a Witcher. Like, not saying we go full American gods on it, but you know, something that would maybe be a little bit more modern, because unless you're going into Christianity, but I really can't see Kratos like beating up the three wise men or something. You know, I can't.
They can't go that modern.
Yeah, you can't. Can you go forward? Like, how can you go forward in a timeline?
You're right. But I would pay for that game. God, I'd pay for that game.
Yeah, I Am Jesus Christ is coming soon.
Coming
You're right.
But no, I mean, there was like, did you ever hear the original ending for God of War 3 was meant to be like end of the game, a realm tear opens and just like Egyptian gods come out, all these other gods come out, like Asian gods come out, and then Kratos, I think I'm remembering this correctly, I made a video about it like 2 weeks ago, so I really should remember this, but basically like he realizes that the god's power comes from humanity's worshipping of them, and then he sorts that out, those gods all kind of die, and then at the end of the game it's the three wise men going, symbolizing like the birth of a new god, Jesus.
I'm gonna have to YouTube this. I've never seen that.
So they never made it. This was like just the idea that I believe David Jaffe had ages ago, but like he didn't work on it, but he talked about it in a God of War 3, like they made like Sony made a documentary about it, and he had this idea. And so I would love to get like gods from other like
absolutely
like religions.
Egyptian gods would be really fun. There's lots of story there.
That was meant to be. They did concept art for instead of Norse, and then the reason I literally just made this video, so I'm sorry, it's like fresh in my mind, but they I read that the reason they didn't go for Egyptian gods is like the sole backdrop for this was because in like the Scandinavian thing that they went for, it was a lot more isolated, so it could be way more character focused, whereas if you went to Egypt, it was way more like society focused, and so it wouldn't necessarily have had the same like power behind those stories, like at least the intimate character moments, because you would have this backdrop which was way busier. But
that makes sense. Okay.
Now Norse stuff is
Interesting.
done.
I just think like there's so many. I mean, mythology wise, there's a lot of cool places they could go, but I don't know how you keep one-upping your narrative interactions, because this was really. I mean, I didn't think it would be possible to really give as impactful of a story as they gave with 2018, but they did it, and I think they did it really masterfully. And I'm like, but what's next? You know, like as Kratos becomes a man and an adult, and his relationship with his dad. I mean, definitely there's more themes to explore. Of course, there's a lot of problems that we as humans have with each other and our emotions. But man, they got their work cut out for him, that team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, the relationship between, like you said, Kratos and Atreus was kind of the center of a lot of this, and watching that unfold. But it seems like, you know, they're cool now. They're good. Atreus is off doing his own shit, looking for giants and whatever. But now that they're good, you know, I think the next time we see Atreus, though, he's going to be a man, adult man. And I'm really excited to see what they do with him, because they can still play around with him a lot. Do you know, Lucy, does Kratos age, or is he like stuck at this age, or how does that work for him?
I mean, he looks old as fuck, so he definitely
he
has
does
to
look
age
old
a little
as
bit.
fuck, but
Even if it's slow.
Yeah,
well, that's
he
what I'm
might
wondering.
have reduced aging, because
how long will Kratos live?
he becomes
How
the god of
old
war.
is-
Like, he pulls a bargain with
Kratos is not immortal. None of the well, I don't know if this is true or not. Never mind. Okay.
I don't know. Like, he's
Yeah, I
definitely
They say he's
aging.
around 1,064 years old at the time of God of War Ragnarok.
Fuck. All right.
I mean, I see that too, and I would like to like further explore how they came up with that number, but who knows?
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll find out.
Around 1,000?
That's too many years to be alive. It's too many.
Well, yeah, for normal humans, correct.
At least
Yeah,
a
for
few hundred.
anybody. Like nobody wants to be alive for that long. You gotta see a bunch of bullshit. That's what you gotta see.
And then you have a
1,000 years,
teenager.
right?
Oh yeah, how long's he gonna be a
Ugh.
teenager for?
That quote. So I put that quote from Faye up. We didn't even talk about Faye at all.
Oh yeah, we should talk about
Also,
her.
Deborah Ann Woll played her, which she's amazing, and I love her. And I wish we would have got a few more flashbacks with Faye and seen, because every time they talked about Faye and Kratos together, I just kept thinking, I want to see like I want them to flashback to a moment where like Faye like has this like, I like that guy. He's
Yeah, I want to
he's
know how that
hot,
went
or he's
down,
funny,
right?
or he gonna be my baby daddy, like something. I was like, because Kratos is so fucking serious all the time. But
I love how she calls
he
him
won
Grumbles.
her over somehow, and they like did the thing and made a baby and whatnot. And they flash back to when Kratos is, or not Kratos, but Atreus is a baby, and that's a really like neat moment to see. But I was hoping to get a little bit more of like what happened to make Faye go, hey boo, what's good?
And them ashes are cute. Like, what?
Those
Kratos
ashes
is
of all
just
your
so
dead people.
serious all the fucking time.
Jesus. Yeah, I'm glad we got what we got, but I also would like to see more. I like that she called him Grumbles a lot. I like that, she poked fun at him quite a bit. It's like, what, did they just like beat the shit out of each other, and then like sexual tension came up, and they're like, okay, let's boink. Oh, that was kind of nice. We should stick around. Like, how did that happen? I would like to know. I don't know. But I mean, I do like them together. Again, Kratos is at his best when he's around people he cares and loves about, because he kind of unfolds like an onion. He peels like an onion.
It's almost like all of us are the best when we're around people who support us and love us. It's like it's talking about real life, Brittany. It's a thing. They're just,
we say it as we're all remotely dialing in on Discord.
I know, right? God. So I have a potentially stupid question. Why aren't giants big?
Well, one giant we see is big.
Yeah.
But Atreus and his mom and Angrboda are all like people-sized.
I don't know if
that, don't they?
They do, and the only thing I remember, and maybe Lucy, you know more, is just because you're called a giant doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna be big and tall. I think it depends on like kind of giant you are.
Yeah,
that's all I got from that.
Yeah, so they kind of qualify it as like giant being like a race versus giant being like a physical qualifier.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
But some giants are fucking huge.
I just didn't understand. I was like, he started saying he's a giant, because I haven't played 2018 to completion either. So he's like, I'm a giant, and I'm like, no, you're not. Like, I was confused.
You tiny ass little boy.
So like Angrboda's grandmother is a giant because her house.
She's mad big,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
That was a fun level that I wish we got to spend way more time in. I was like, I actually like purposefully went through that level really slowly because I was like, this is a cool ass level.
Yeah.
That it's going to be over way too quick and we're never going to come back here. And you can't, like, even in the end game, when you go back to Jotunheim, it's very limited where you can go. You can't, like, go explore. You can see Angrboda's treehouse and, like, that's it.
Yeah.
And it was just like, this is such a cool, it was like a Jack and the Giant Beanstalk kind of moment. And I was like, this is fun.
It was cool. Really cool level design.
Or something. Just sneaking around.
Yeah. No, I mean, I loved Ragnarok. It definitely, the final sequence when, it's weird, I'm going to try to explain it. So the final part of the game where Ragnarok is going down, you've blown the horn, and then Kratos starts it off with that badass like little speech that he gives. And I'm like, yeah, you go general, tap into those general genes. He gives this thing, and then shit goes down. Like that whole part from start to finish to me was just like sublime. So fucking good. That said, I thought the plot point of Ragnarok itself, the thing the game had been leading up to, was kind of anticlimactic. It didn't feel like this end of all end battle. But I still just love that last part of it. How did you guys feel about Ragnarok itself?
I was a little bit confused about the fire giant's role to play. So there's a mission that you go on before you end up blowing the Gjallarhorn and taking down well, it's after you take down Heimdall, but it's like, so we know that we have to essentially initiate this battle with Odin. We need something on our side, and there's part of the prophecy is this fire giant and I think this frost giant who is his partner. And so you go after him. His name is Surtur. And I think that they rushed that narrative moment. Honestly, like, if I'm going to point out a flaw in the missions that they created, like, this is, to me, the biggest flaw of, like, this felt really hurried. I didn't really feel like I got a full explanation of, like, why we were doing this, who Surtur was. The fact that they kept calling him Ragnarok instead of the event of Ragnarok also confused me at the end. So Riana, is part of like the prophecy, the idea is that you meet these two giants and they're supposed to essentially like Voltron together to form this giant like mech type creature that's supposed to fight in Ragnarok in the battle against Odin. And he decides that he doesn't want to join with his partner because he doesn't want her to be hurt anymore. He's like it's like his longtime love. So they are these two giants that have essentially like these like rock giants almost that have like swapped hearts. So inside him is her heart and inside her is his heart. And they're like these eternal lovers. And it's a really like sweet story. But it just, like, again, I feel like it just felt so hurried. You kind of just go, you kind of hand wave it a little bit. And they're like, yeah, whatever. I'm trying to get to the end of the game at this point. And then you are supposed to activate this guy. Once you blow Gjallarhorn, he's like, I'll hear the call and I'll come fight at your side as this, like, big, crazy, giant monster character. And he gets there, but because he didn't join with his partner, he's like missing his other half, and then he's essentially useless in the battle. And I'm like, so what was all
killing
that
everybody
for? Exactly.
He's killing everybody.
Like, chucking stuff. He's kind of off in the distance. And you do get a really cool moment where you kind of see him arrive and, you know, start causing chaos. But it's not entirely. I agree with Andrea. Like, I was like, I don't know what's going on here. I'm just gonna keep going and find Odin. It's fine.
Yep.
I'll just go.
All we knew is that they had to join together for the prophecy to take fold or for Ragnarok to happen. But that was it. They just told us that there wasn't a lot of building up to that part. And yeah, It was too bad because it could have been real good. And I wasn't even sure if that was even him. I'm like, is this Odin? Like, I don't know. I don't know who to trust anymore. Because he had some of the same mannerisms of Odin. So I was kind of freaked out. But I want to call out the part, is it after he falls? You're at this beautiful location, Rhea. I think it's called the Spark of the Beginning or the Spark of the World.
Oh, yeah.
What's it called? The Spark of the World. Here we go. And it's this gorgeous, like, purples and reds and pinks cosmos. It's just stunning. And he is all fucked up, and he's like, okay, I gotta form and morph. He falls off this edge, and you're just like on these floating ass like little asteroid things. I don't even know what they are. But then this really cool fight happens with Hurst and Mist. I think these Valkyries, and that fight was also intense. But there's this moment where Atreus can shapeshift, and I think he has a bear form and a wolf form, and he turns into the wolf form when I think he's just like feeling. I don't know how to explain it. It's like his like good form. He's like, I love everyone and I'm in control or whatever. And then he can turn into his bear form when he's like, I'm going to fuck some shit up. And up until that point, whenever he turns into the bear form, he's unable to control himself. But in this moment, he's able to control it. And there's just this beautiful like flash of a moment of Kratos and then Atreus as a bear, but it's like this like scene out of a fucking anime. It's so sick.
Oh yeah, they get like that hero shot moment.
They get
like,
that hero shot at the back.
And...
Oh my god, I'll just send it to you. It was really pretty. That part I was like, oh, that's so badass. And again, I didn't cry, but my eyes welled up a little bit. I was like, oh, my boy's doing it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what God of War as a franchise, I think, is really known for. These giant, big set pieces, these incredibly cinematic moments. If you think back to the early parts of the franchise, if people who are listening or watching played the early God of Wars, like that's what people always talked about. These huge battles that Kratos would do with these gods. I mean, he is a god killer. And I do like that they have a moment where he is with Freya, I believe, and she asks him about some of the things that he did in his past life, and he talks about taking down Medusa. And he's like, there's this god Medusa, and like it's a really fun callback moment to this fight, you know, and it reminds players who've been with the franchise for a really long time of like, yeah, like Sony Santa Monica as a studio has been doing these kinds of big set pieces all along. It's really a hallmark of this franchise, and I'm really glad that they really honored that in what they did both with the 2018 God of War and what we saw in Ragnarok. It's just good. There's obviously flaws, and people on Twitter were quick to flock to my feed when I mentioned that we were doing our spoiler cast this week and how I talked about how I thought the game was really masterfully done yet again. And all these freaking haters come into my feed and are like, it was boring, didn't like it, it was stupid. And I was like, cool, bro, thanks for your input.
Take that opinion, turn it sideways, and shove it up your ass.
Sorry you wasted your time.
No one asked. God.
Just missed the point. But I do want to wrap up our discussion. Ladies, any kind of, I guess maybe we'll start with you, Riana, since you've,
sure.
Not gotten all the way to the end. Obviously, we've dropped a lot on you. There's clearly a lot more to happen.
Spoiled the shit out of it for you.
And I
love
do
it.
hope that you continue playing because there's some really, really fun moments. Is there anything that you either looking forward to experiencing that you really enjoyed? A moment, a quote, a relationship, anything that you kind of want to like leave people with of like, this was like the thing that I really appreciated about the game?
Something that I really liked was sort of around that time when they were going to find Tyr, I guess the first time, not that there's a second time, where they were in a train, like a runaway train, and they crashed, and Atreus is like, shit, very appropriately, as most of us probably would say. And after, they get out of that scene, I think Kratos fights a troll or briefly, he starts chastising Atreus and says like, is that their last words you want to say before you die? Like, you should have more control. And it was just such a weird moment because and then Mimir steps in and is like, dude, seriously, like chill out. Like he's a kid, like he's gonna curse when he's upset. And he's like, but like it was just so interesting to see those two different viewpoints on a moment of panic, and then seeing it from Atreus's perspective where he's like trying to defend himself to his dad and saying like, dude, I was fucking scared. Like, what do you expect me to say? He's like, you need to harness that and control it and use it to get out of the situation. And that was one of those moments where it's just like, you get to see 3 different versions of like, one person is like very rooted in like, how do I move forward no matter what happens? Like, I'm going to outlive my entire family. Like, that is Kratos. And then there's another person, Mimir, who's like, hey, I'm just going with the flow. I can't die. Like, everything's chill. Like, it's whatever. Like, that's his perspective. Smartest man alive, right? And then there's Atreus, who's like this kid who has like all the potential in the world. Like, you know, shape-shifting characters are often used as avatars for like unlimited possibility, right? We look at Jack in The Incredibles and things like that, where it's like he could be anything. Like, we don't know what his future holds, even at the end of this game, it sounds
example.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. And the fact that his reaction is just so pure and just so natural. It's like, I'm scared, I'm gonna curse. Like I just love all of the different perspectives. And again, shout out to the narrative team for having such great character, character DNA, and where you can see where they're all clearly written by the same group of people, but they all feel so different and they all have such different takes on every situation. And it's just kind of like a little microcosm example of like how excited I am to see all of the other characters in this game and how they react to these different situations. So yeah, I'm gonna keep playing it. I will. Yay. I promise. I'm very excited to see it.
Brittany.
Oh, do you want me to talk about some shit? Okay, I can do that. I think my favorite part of Ragnarok was obviously like the twists and the turns got me. And that's always exciting as someone who's invested in these stories. But I think it was just watching Kratos evolve as a dad and as a human. I think in that relationship between the two of him, Atreus and Kratos, form. And, you know, we got Kratos apologizing to Atreus at one point. And he says, I'm sorry. And Atreus looks at him and he said, don't be sorry, be better. And the little smile that forms on Kratos' bearded ass mouth was just so fucking heartwarming. I was like, oh, that was so good. And, you know, towards the end, at the very end-ish, where Kratos is telling Atreus, open your heart to it, when it's always been close your heart to it. And then there was these moments of levity where you have this father and son dynamic. And I think about when they were, I think it's in Vanaheim at the wishing well or wishing pond, whatever it's called. And you're throwing these little shards in here and you're getting some bomb-ass rewards in return. And Mimir makes this little remark and he said, brother, we should throw the boy into the water. He stinks. And Atreus says, I don't smell, father, do I? And Kratos just pauses and he goes, it is natural. And then he just has like this super, you can tell Atreus is embarrassed as all shit. And it's like, those little interactions to me are just, oh my God, so heartwarming. And I love that they were thrown in there. You could miss them, but if you got to experience them, it really added a lot of dimension to their relationship. So again, phenomenally done. Well done. You did it, Sony Santa Monica. Now give us another one.
Lucy, you're up.
I think so. I mean, obviously, the one of the big themes of the first 2018 is like breaking this cycle of violence. Like, he deliberately doesn't tell Atreus that he's part God because he doesn't want him to live that life. He doesn't want him to have these hardships that he's had. And so, it's breaking the silence and like Kratos' journey to being a better father. And so, in Ragnarok, it's the moments where he knows he has to let him go. And the way that that's done, I thought that was beautiful. I really love the way that he talks to Thor and goes, look, we have both done some shit. Like, you mentioned this moment earlier. It's like, we have to be better. And it's like, it's him realizing the change has to come from him and not, you know, he realizes that Atreus is going to be his own person and is going to do things his way. And all he can do is guide, but be there and also set an example. And I think one moment that I really, really loved is the night before Ragnarok. Atreus gets his own tent, which is huge because it's like a man deserves his own tent. So he gets his tent, and then in the middle of the night, he comes over and he's like, "Can I come sleep with you?" To Kratos.
And they like have like a dad and son cuddle moment. It was so sweet.
And Kratos tells that story. And
yes.
Again, going back to Christopher Judge, the facial animations that are captured on Kratos, like, he doesn't even need to say anything. You can just tell what's going through his mind. You can tell he was this close to breaking down. He's never wanted to see his son go to war, and here they are the night before war. No one knows what the next day is going to bring. Like, I can just vicariously feel that anxiety and that dread and that pit in my stomach, knowing what he must be feeling. And yeah, that was beautiful, Lucy. I'm glad you brought that up. Also, shout out to Lunda, my new favorite blacksmith.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we didn't talk about her at all. She was a fun moment, and she kind of takes Brok's place in the end game when you're going around and you find these blacksmith shops throughout the world. A lot of them where Brok was. Lunda will be. She's a dwarf that you will meet later on in Vanaheim. But these are all great moments. I think just a couple for me. I love that the game routinely called me out for taking time to go and find chests.
Yes.
It's like the characters.
My dad loves loot.
The characters are always like, okay, well, this is not where we're going, but sure, you need to go find your chest. Go ahead. And I love it. It was so fourth wall breaking. And they're like, yeah, you're gonna go loot, trash panda. And I was like, yeah, I gotta go find the stuff. And the characters.
Atreus at one point is like, yeah, my dad loves treasure or something because he's talking to, I think, Tyr at the moment. And I was like, God damn it, you're right. Fuck.
It was so, I lost it the first time somebody, I don't know if it was Mimir or Atreus or somebody in the very beginning of the game was just like, yeah, sure, you're going to go look up there for another chest or something. I was like, oh my God, yes, I am. I am going to go look for another chest. How dare you?
And the bit when you're playing as Atreus and he tries to punch through a chest.
Oh, that's so good. Oh my God.
And he's like, oh, no, mistake.
My hand hurts. I shouldn't have tried that. And then he's like, okay, you use my bow instead. It was a really funny moment, and I liked how on the nose it was. I think it brought some really great levity, and I think levity was so needed with all of these really weighty, heavy themes of loss and letting go that they talked about in the game. And the quote that I had mentioned on Twitter was what Faye had said about grief, about how you know that you've fully loved when you grieve deeply, and this idea of if you're really grieving deeply, it's because you've loved fully. And I think that that's a theme that a lot of us experience in our lives, or we all will experience at some point. And how
love persevering.
Yeah, exactly. This idea that, you mentioned, Brittany, that moment of opening your heart, and how Kratos talks to Atreus about, don't close your heart, open your heart. And that's predicated by this scene that they flash back to with Faye, of Faye saying, hey, actually opening your heart to love and opening your heart to the world is how you keep going in the face of overwhelming grief. That you can get lost in this sea of sadness and what you no longer have in your life, but instead you should open your heart to the fact that there are people in this world that still need you and need your love, and that you can give your love to, and how you can find purpose in loving more people and bringing more joy in people's lives. And I was like, it was such a hit me in the feels moment that I wasn't expecting, on top of so many other hit me in the feels moment throughout the game, that I was just like, you know what, this is really impactful and really important. And I just
there's so many.
There's
and
so
we didn't
many.
even talk
There's
about
so
the
many.
scene where Fenrir was revived, how his ear drooped, how his eyes got big and brown. I'm like, those look like my dog's eyes. And I love that the first thing Kratos does, he goes, sit. And he's like, okay, fine, shit. And he just sits down. And then you can go back and give him a big old pet later on.
Yeah,
he calls him a good
Jotunheim,
boy.
you can give him
Yeah.
dog pets. Oh, it was so sweet.
There's just so many good moments. I mean, we literally could be here all night. I have a whole list of other shit, but like I said, we'd be here forever. But yeah, just a phenomenal game. So good.
And we imagine if you've gotten to the end of the spoiler cast, you've already experienced all of these moments for yourself. And because we're doing a spoiler cast video, if you guys want to drop your favorite moments on the YouTube comments, please do. We would love to hear, some impactful moments for you and what you loved about the game. Maybe if you have theories about where you think Kratos is going to go, what's going to happen next, we'd love to hear that too. And of course, we will be back next week talking about what happened at the Game Awards. Apparently, we're going to be getting some good reveals and some trailers and shit. Fingers crossed.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Well, Keely brings the goods.
He does.
Yeah. And the four of us will take a photo together.
Yes, in LA.
It's going to happen.
I'm so excited.
Oh.
I'm calling it right now. But in the meantime, thank you everybody for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the spoiler cast, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.